I am Spaceboy, and you are, sir?
I'm Jack Moore, Exhibits Manager with Johnson Space Center.
It is awesome because, every year that we've come to Comicpalooza, it seems like y'all are hand in hand with Comicpalooza. What can you tell us a little bit about the setup this year?
Well, we love coming out and talking to the public about what we do. And Comicpalooza gives us a really neat opportunity to really do some community engagement and share with the visitors here what's happening at NASA, right? Because we have NASA TV, we have a lot of social media, but this is an opportunity to meet face-to-face, one-on-one. All of the volunteers in the booth today work at Johnson Space Center in some capacity, engineers, scientists, communication specialists, and we're very passionate about what we do because it's just cool. It's rocket science, right? And so it's a great opportunity to talk about things and answer people's questions and get people excited about exploration. And get to talk to folks like you. I mean, you look like a space fan here.
Well,
so
ever since I was a little kid, I think it really started with Star Trek, and then of course when I started back in the '70s, the shuttle was coming on board, and that kind of was fascinating. And which leads us to the future. The last update we had was the most recent vehicle that we were seeing at that time was the Orion.
Yeah.
What can we tell? Can you give us an update on that?
Oh boy! So I'll tell you what. That's what we have right back here, the Orion spacecraft. And the first launch of this is actually not that far from now. It's 2019 is where we're going to have the Space Launch System, the SLS, and that's going to take off from Kennedy Space Center. And this is a proof of concept, right? It's going to be the first test flight of the Orion vehicle, and this is a vehicle that's rated to carry human beings, right? So we have a lot of launch vehicles out there, but not all of them are qualified to carry a human. And it's very difficult to qualify that, right? You have to have the life support systems, you have to have abort systems, you have to give the vehicle enough flexibility that in the event of an emergency, a human being can engage and control, right? An astronaut. So it's a whole nother level of qualifying a launch vehicle. And so when we launch in 2019, that's going to be a major milestone, in addition to a historic moment, because SLS is the most powerful rocket that's ever been built. So it's going to be a fantastic sight. It's going to be a wonderful moment. It's going to be that preliminary step into going back to deep space. Because following Exploration Mission 1, which is what that flight's going to be called, we'll have Exploration Mission 2, which will fly human beings on board. And that'll go into lunar orbit, or what we call cislunar orbit. So it's similar to what we did with Apollo, but at much, much higher altitude to the moon. So really on that flight, it's going to be the deepest that humans have ever gone into space, the furthest from Earth. So very exciting times. This vehicle's taking shape down at Kennedy Space Center, same thing with the SLS, and it's not going to be long from now before it all comes together, and we have the big launch in Florida.
So basically, this is our back to the moon kind of situation. But ultimately, I think as a kid growing up, the thing I was always looking forward to is our trip to Mars. So I know this would be phase 1, but is this ultimately going to lead to phase 2s and 3s? Or what can you tell us on that?
So you have to almost think of it as it is back to the moon, but it's a bit more than that. Behind you over here, we have the outpost, the lunar outpost, right? So what's exciting about this is it's the infrastructure so that we can go back and do moon missions, but also to help support missions deeper into space. So this could be a space station that's in deep space that allows us to resupply or conduct research that's necessary to go beyond the moon now and off to Mars. So it's kind of like, if you want to travel to another state, you have to have a highway, or you have to have a air traffic control system. You have to have that foundation, and that's what we're building now. And we're really hoping that as we build that foundation, not only will NASA be able to go further, but commerce and industry will be able to continue to follow us in our footsteps. So that's what we like to do, like with the space station. We went up there, we set up an outpost in low Earth orbit, and we got contracts with commercial vehicles to come up there and support the space station, and we're helping to build that economy, right? Now you have the SpaceX and the Boeings and Sierra Nevadas all coming in to help support station with that infrastructure that's in place. So now we'd like to give that over to the commercial and go even further and bring the economy with us as we go deeper into space, and that helps to bring those benefits back here to Earth. So it's a very exciting as we peek over the horizon. We got one hand on the horizon, the other hand we're holding it with industry, and we're bringing everybody forward.
As far as technology coming down the pipe, what is something that you see in the next 100 years that we can be looking forward to, like FTL and things like that?
Boy, next 100 years. Well, it's funny because I did a panel yesterday all about, the role that art has at NASA, right? And a big topic for us was that symbiotic relationship that science fiction and science fact seem to have, right? It's almost like a constant one-upsmanship. Star Trek brings out tricorders, and industry says, hey, that's kind of cool, how can we do that, right? Well, we've got these things called satellites, maybe we can make that with cell phones. And so there's this constant gradual stepping. So looking out 100 years, boy, we're talking about the adventures my grandkids may go on someday. And selfishly, I hope that is a very broad, that there's a lot of options for them in terms of where they could choose to go. I hope they get to explore the oceans of Europa, or possibly see the shores on Titan. Those are the kinds of things that excite me. That really kind of drives my passion. Working at Johnson Space Center, is that we are really laying that foundation to make those kinds of things possible.
So one last question: when did your fascination begin with space?
Well, I was grinning when you mentioned Star Trek, because some of my most vivid memories are sitting on the couch with my dad watching the original Star Trek series, and then eventually watching The Next Generation. And those are things that are very near and dear to my heart. And I think that was part of it. I could point to a lot of things. Particularly my unique path was art. So I went to school and I studied art, and then worked my way into NASA as a communications specialist. So I point to science fiction, I point to Star Trek and Star Wars. Star Wars probably a little more so than Star Trek. But also, watching PBS and seeing Commander Mark, drawing things on TV, drawing these worlds and spaceships and aliens, that got my imagination going, and I wanted to capture that in my own art. And when I found out that I could create things that got people excited about something that I was also passionate about, I think it was destiny at that point. So I do have a lot of roots in science fiction, but I have to give a lot of credit to a lot of different people, because we're all kind of on this journey together, helping to support each other. And it's hard to put my finger on just one thing, but those memories with my dad watching Star Trek probably played a big role.
Yeah, I have to agree, the Star Trek thing, and of course, I'm actually from a small town outside of San Antonio, Bandera, Texas, so I'd get a chance to be able to see the night sky and just wonder about the many infinite possibilities that are out there. Of course, listening to Carl Sagan talk about the many things, and so I can tell we're based in the same roots there, and it's just the unknown, the final frontier, if you will, to head on out there. Well, we appreciate you taking the time, and we, like I said, we love NASA, and space is in our blood, and we hope you have a great day.
Yeah, well, thank you very much, and if people want to learn more, please visit us on Twitter at NASA _Johnson is where you can hear about what things that are happening at Johnson Space Center. And of course, if you really want to dive in deep and see all the exciting things NASA's doing, we have a pretty long URL, so if you grab a pen at home, it's nasa.gov. And that's the starting point on an amazing journey to uncover all kinds of cool stuff about the agency. So thank you for your time.